Well, hello everyone. We're doing one of these again. Apparently 4 hours last night was not enough. The context of this video will be to evaluate Scottie, I think, through a fair lens. I think this is going to be about as critical as I can be of him without extending into the territory that Grange and Will Liu are going into. But I just want to say that we're going to go into the analytics, but I do want to address what I've been harping on for a few weeks, which is anchoring bias. So there's a writer for The Athletic, Sam Vecenie, and if Sam Vecenie ends up watching this, please know that I was not thrilled. Um, I've not been thrilled over the last year about your coverage of Scottie Barnes. And I want you to take a very critical look at this. I want you to take a look at every single person who has said anything about Scottie over the last 3-4 days. And I want you to map it against where they were on him at the time of the draft. So to be very specific, Sam Vecenie was very critical of the Toronto Raptors for drafting Scottie Barnes over his perceived better pick, which was Jalen Suggs. This was his take back then. And after a year, it was very clear that he was wrong. He clung to it for quite a while. He said, Suggs is injured. Suggs is having a slow start. He's still flashing potential on defense. Then, sometime this summer, he addressed it in a video, and I encourage you to go look it up, where he said, how did we get Scottie so wrong? So he addressed it. After a year of winning Rookie of the Year, he was like, okay, we're through. This narrative is not going, I need to own this before it gets worse. So he owns it, and he bridges it by saying, I underestimated how smart Scottie was. That's how he's overcome all of the perceived talent deficits that I thought that he had. And then today or yesterday, I saw a video from Sam Vecenie, and once again, he's comparing him to Jalen Suggs. He said, Scottie Barnes' true shooting percentage is blank, 51.5%. It's just 1% better than Jalen Suggs. These are two players who are going to be compared to each other forever. Now, this is a problem in sports, and I want to talk about it from the context of both myself and how it impacts everyone in the world. If you've ever been in high school, if you've been introduced into high school politics, there was a girl who, for whatever reason, got a reputation as, not, I don't want to say the SLU word because I don't want to get this stream demonetized, but there's a girl in your school who had that reputation. It doesn't matter how she got it, but I'll tell you right now that, okay, so someone just said Suggs has improved, Barnes hasn't. We're going to get to some of these comments because this is just abysmal stuff, but it doesn't really matter how you get your reputation, but once you get a reputation like that, it is very difficult to shake, in my opinion. Vince Carter got a reputation as a guy who dogged it because of a misquote and somewhat of a twist in that interview he did after he was traded from the Toronto Raptors. This is an extension of, a series of hit pieces that the Toronto media did on him when he left. And I can tell you that Vince Carter, post-Toronto, had one of the most incredible careers. Yeah, there were no championships, but the way that he adjusted from being a superstar to a vet to a secondary option to a role player, incredible. There are very few stars in league history who've had that level of presence of mind. And yet, to this day, I think people still can't forget that Vince Carter didn't try hard in Toronto. That tag sticks with you for a very long time. So this idea of Scottie as a prospect stuck in a lot of people's minds. Can't shoot, developmental prospect, can't score, et cetera, et cetera. And he comes out and he's so much better than people thought that he would be, that it tends to poke holes in the credibility of people, and people were just kind of waiting. Now, I want to say that I also have been sour on prospects. I was sour on Paolo Banchero, if you want my opinion. I didn't think he can play a lick of defense. I'm shifting on him. It hasn't taken 2 full years. It doesn't take him winning Rookie of the Year. It just takes me watching him and addressing that, hey, I underrated this guy. Let me evaluate based on what I'm seeing right now. Let me change my tune. I was pretty high on Cade Cunningham coming into the draft. In summer league, I changed my opinion about him when I saw him up close, and it felt different. It felt like I had been sort of lied to by the tape. And so I immediately became very, I don't want to say anti-Cade, but I got off him really quick, and I've stayed there. Nothing is going to change that unless he changes his play. So we do need to be able to shift and adjust based on the evidence that's being presented to us, right? So that's where I'm at right now with this. Now, the sentiment around Scottie right now is pretty low. Okay, Will Lou had his Raptors show today. He had Michael Grange on, and for 24 hours, he's kind of egging us on with this anticipatory. Grange is going to expand on his note about the hard truths that Masai Ujiri delivered to Scottie Barnes. And of course, if you were abreast of that actual conversation, you would probably understand that. Like, if you know the details of it, you would understand that calling it hard truths is very misrepresentative, and how that article and everything came out. Um, the way Sam Vecenie talked about Scottie, saying that he's hurting the team, he shouldn't be out there. He's not helping the team win right now. Um, he can't stay in front of anybody. He can't defend. Can't score. He said can't score. Just can't score. So this got me thinking, if I'm not watching Scottie and I just listen to Sam Vecenie, or if I just listen to Michael Grange, I'm developing a very different impression of the player than I'm actually watching. And this is why this video exists, because we're going to dig into those numbers. First, I want to open it up to some conversation with you guys. I'm going to get into the numbers. This is not going to be a 4-hour stream, guys. I don't have the energy for another one, and I don't think anyone does at this point. So it's about 10:39 right now. I think I would like to get into those numbers maybe in about 5 to 6 minutes. We'll go through them and we'll figure it out. Like, what, apart from the box score, what are we not seeing? What's bad? What's good? And trust me, there's a lot of bad. There's a lot of bad in Scottie's numbers, and there's a lot of good in Scottie's numbers that I think needs to be addressed, so that the media who wake up tomorrow and potentially watch this can have better and more informed talking points. Now, if you want to dial in, if you want to have a conversation about this, a quick conversation, no 10-minute discussions, but if you want to just quickly dial in, the link is in the description, and you can dial in. It's a StreamYard link. I think I can post it here. Yeah. So dial in here. So I'm just going to post that in the comments as well. If you want to come on, you want to talk this through, you want to tell me what you're seeing in Scottie's game, and then we'll go into the numbers. I have reiterated this a few times that I think that mainly the issues stem down to 3 things. Number 1, progressive overload and fatigue. A lot of work has gone in to make him the player from Monbird to the player you saw last year. That is not easy to do. And scouts who said he can't really score right now, if you were watching him at Florida State, that's not an inaccurate statement that to say that he would be a poor scorer in the NBA. For him to come out and have the season that he did last year required a great deal of work and a tremendous amount of adjustment. And that can be very difficult for an athlete to do in a very short order. And sometimes you run too fast and you burn yourself out. So I think progressive overload is one part. I think the other part that is definitely, I think, getting talked about a little bit more, everyone who's talked about Scottie, having watched him, they would agree that he has not looked right. He's looked a little bit hurt. So that is definitely impacting it. The third thing is the offense itself. Where he is in this offense. It's not, I'm not going to say, oh, he's not getting touches. It's not that, because as we will see in the numbers, he's getting plenty of touches. He's touching the ball a lot. It's not that he's not getting shots. It's the quality of looks he's getting. It's the players around him. How much better does a passer look when guys can actually hit shots versus how much worse does a passer look when guys routinely fumble, clean looks at the basket, can't make threes. So I think that there is a sort of overload here. We have Michael here. Michael, let's talk it out. Hey, Michael, how are you doing?
How's it going?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing very well. Doing very well. I think it's much ado about nothing when it comes to Scottie Barnes and his little swamp in the middle of his sophomore year, which is well known in sports as a sophomore slump, right? I think he's going to be fine. I think the team, on the other hand, needs to take a real good look at itself.
Okay.
They need to solve some issues. They don't have a backcourt. They need a backcourt, of course. I mean, okay, they have a backcourt. They don't have a great backcourt. Is what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I don't know if Coloco's the man, but he could be. They need to develop a system that utilizes the best of their talent, and they have not done that.
Okay, tell me something. Have you read Michael Grange's piece on Scottie Barnes? Have you read Dave Feshik's piece or seen Sam Vecenie's interview?
No, I didn't read it, but I heard you talk about it, and
Okay.
I think that's just it's like typical Canadian bullshit where, excuse me, sorry, where it's not they're not burning up the league, so we're just kind of like.
Well, see, the thing is that, sometimes quotes can be somewhat twisted a little bit, right? To make someone look a lot worse. For instance, Scotty said that, when he was asked about his slump, and, the media gets very pesky because they have an article that they want to write. They want to write about Scotty's slump. So they'll ask him very leading questions about why he's slumping. Now, if he thinks that he's not slumping, then he redirected it. So what he said was, I think that people are focusing a little bit too much on scoring. I think there's a lot of other stuff that I do, right? Which is fair. It's very true. We will find that he is a very good rebounder. He's a above average defender. He's an incredible playmaker, as we're going to see with the numbers. So scoring may not be the only way to evaluate how a person's season is going, obviously, right? I mean, if I were to say that Steve Nash is a terrible player because he doesn't score as much as Kobe Bryant, that's pretty stupid, right? It's a certain expectation that a guy has to score 30 points, 25 points. And, he sort of said it about as nicely as he could that, we have a lot of people in this offense who want to score, and it's not going to be my night every night. And yeah, he's addressed the fact that, he's like, I'm not, I'm in a bit of a shooting slump, but he's refused to own this idea of a sophomore slump, as in the holistic season, saying, I think you guys are sort of underrating the performance that I'm having, even though I accept that I'm not having the performance I want to be having. And I think that it's interesting that when Will Liu brings it up on his podcast last night, he says, well, Scotty doesn't want us to talk about his scoring. This is like a game of broken telephone in high school. It's very immature and I think irresponsible for someone who doesn't, for me personally, when Scotty was being drafted, I was one of his biggest fans, and I took every, media report about him being a really bad, pick extremely personally. And so I started tracking how these people would change their tune, because I knew it was going to be a matter of time before they were going to be eating crow. And I watched them cling to it for a few weeks until they eventually started to just accept it. And then eventually all those people that I initially had pegged as, what I call like Scotty detractors in the beginning. And this, I don't mean to make it adversarial, but they were not fans of this pick. Those same people, be it Amateur Sports Hour, the YouTube channel, be it, Sam Vecenie, be it, Sportsnet and their coverage, Grange, Will Liu, these guys, none of these guys were happy with this pick. None of them thought that this was the right pick. And it's these guys who are having their moment in the sun to say, told you so. And I get it. I've been sour on prospects that everyone has been super high on. And I've felt a sense of, when that prospect really flames out or does poorly, I feel a sense of let me share with people that I told you so. I get it. But to ignore an entire season and to just wipe it out and just say, this is who he is now. This 22 game sample size, this is who he is. Yeah, he's hurt. Yeah, the offense is struggling. Yeah, the shooters are struggling. Yeah, everyone's struggling. But look at him.
You pointed it out early in the season that Scotty was playing hurt, and I started watching him from that point of view, and he was playing hurt for most of the first half of our season so far, or maybe even more, than playing hurt. I mean, a nagging injury does not mean that you can't play, but it means you're not up to your total game.
Sure.
And I think he's a lock for being a superstar in this league. I think we need to run our offense around him. He needs to be the guy who makes it happen. Bringing the ball up, dishing, shooting, driving, because he can do all of that so much better than Fred.
Yeah. I think that those are some fair points. I don't want to push back. I don't think that he's like, so for instance, like if he's shooting 32% from 3 and Fred is shooting 32% from 3, right? So yeah, of course, if I want to be very slanted towards Scottie because I feel like people, if I want to be slanted away from Scottie because I think everyone else is being slanted against him, then I could say, well, they're equal shooters. Of course, I know better. Fred's a higher volume 3-point shooter. His 3-point shots are way more contested. Defenses worry about him way more. And so obviously, if Fred VanVleet's cover, if defenses cared about Scottie shooting threes the way they cared about Fred shooting threes, Scottie would be shooting in the 20s. I get that. I'm not saying Scottie's an equal shooter. But what I will agree with you is that everything you're saying about him being a better initiator, him potentially being a way better engine for this team as a lead guard, I think it's worth banking on for the Raptors to assume that that will be true in the next year.
But way back when I texted you or I put in a comment that I thought Scottie had the potential to be another Magic. You immediately said, no, you're getting a little bit, you're going a little too far. And I appreciate what you said, but I think he has innate talent that
I agree with you. And we're going to see it in the numbers, when we pull it up here. And I apologize, Chaz. I'm going to get to you right now. There's another caller, but I think you're going to see in the numbers that. Thank you so much, Michael. But yeah, when we get to the numbers, you're going to see that his playmaking is really on another level this year. So for those people who are saying efficiency, within the offense, his efficiency is so low, I think that efficiency has a lot more to do with how you help your team score when you're on the court. Do you turn the ball over? Like if you shoot incredibly well, but you turn the ball over 7 times a game and have 12 offensive fouls, and you don't grab rebounds, you don't defend. Well, you're not a very efficient player, no matter how well you shoot. So I appreciate you, Michael. Thanks for coming on.
For having me on. Yeah. Take care, man.
Thanks a lot. Hey, Chaz, how are you? Welcome back.
How are you? I'm good. I just thought I'd don my Raptor gear just to show you that I'm a big fan,
Nice.
And I like your topic. I like your topic tonight. It's a good follow up from yesterday. We kind of, yapped on Fred a lot yesterday, and some of the periphery we're talking about how bad Scottie is, and your question about is it fair to Scottie, and my answer is unequivocally no. It's not fair to Scottie, and I'm not pandering for thanks or anything like that. It's just like, come on, man. The body of work is just beginning. The kid is hurt. He is supremely high IQ and supremely talented. I mean, you played ball, right?
Yep.
Your point, right?
Yep.
You roll your ankle.
Okay, so this is interesting. This is interesting. So
you tweak your knee and you tell me what you are prepared to do when you hurt yourself. You don't want to hurt it anymore. You limit yourself on what you can do, right?
That's so interesting that you say this, because I actually got through every game without any serious injuries. The most serious injury I had was like a cut here or a bruise here. It was never serious enough that I never tore anything. This fall, I was on a film set, and I'm 30. I was at 34 at the time, and there's all these spring chickens who think that they're super fast, and I used to be super fast, so they were like, "Oh, we'll race you." So 4 of us get onto the grass. I am not wearing the right footwear at all for this, and we race, and I get dusted. Like, these guys are all athletes. I didn't know that before. They were all like rugby athletes and stuff. So they were super fast, and they're all in their early 20s. They're dusting me like that. They're ahead of me. And I thought it would be funny that old man falls down, So I decided to just, fall. I thought that would be sort of funny because everyone was recording it. And unfortunately, as I fell, I fractured my ankle and I sprained it. Yeah, it was terrible. I didn't mean to do it that way, but I just apparently I don't know how to fall. And I immediately messaged, anyways, I won't say who I messaged, but I said, now I know how Scottie felt, because it was the same ankle. And I tell you, for 3 weeks, I continued to go back to work. People thought I was Hercules because they were like, oh my God, like, you came back? I just took 2 days off and went right back to set. I hobbled around. I hopped. And here's the thing. Within 1 week, I started to feel a complete strain in my other leg, not in the ankle that I was shielding, the knee that I was using to compensate for the ankle. And suddenly
Sure.
I went to the doctor and they're like, yeah, you have knee problems now because you've been hopping around in this knee. Compensation injuries are real. So Scottie, we have seen go from left ankle, right ankle, knee. There is a progression of how this is happening. If you continue to play through these things, it's going to continue to hurt you. But here's the interesting
Are
thing.
you a physio? Are you a physiotherapist or something?
I'm
Like
not,
this is
but
like,
man, like
yeah,
after I went
yeah,
through this,
yeah,
it
for
really
sure.
forced me to look into it. So here's the crazy thing. I'm now 2 months removed from that severe ankle sprain and fracture, and I went to play basketball like 3 weeks ago. Can't shoot.
Oh,
Complete
you're in the legs, right?
imbalance.
Right.
It's the ankles. When you
Yeah.
push off, like depending on the type of shooter you are, if you're a jump shooter, when you push off from your toes, there's power that's exerted through, like created from your body towards the floor that propels you up, that gives you the power for your jump shot. And so you've grown accustomed to thousands and thousands of shots taken in the exact same way. But now you can't do the same thing with the bottom. So you start trying to tweak the top. You're like, okay, well, this is not as powerful, so maybe this needs to be more followed through. And when you keep doing that, you keep missing. So Scottie,
Yeah,
like whether it's
you can
uh,
say that about Fred too, right? With his hitch and his
yes,
shot. Okay, so I got that. So this Barnes does not equal Bagley. All right, this is
no, of course
not
not.
a. This
No,
is
this is
not a.
crazy.
This is a kid who, like, I trust Messiah and Bobby and the team, and I think that he is tremendous field player with savvy moves and raw talent and a love for the game. And he's going through injuries, and his team's not doing so well.
Hmm.
It's a really small sample size. He's hurt. And the thing to me is, when and I'll leave you with this because I know you got other callers.
Hmm.
And thank you again for your great show. I
My
really
pleasure.
enjoy, you have insight and knowledge. And I mean, the whole idea of basketball politics has really got me in a twirl here. But just back to Scotty for a second. I go with what the other players say, and everyone in this first year said this kid is special, and he is special. And take it to the bank, he is special. He will be special again,
Hmm.
and they will build around him, and that's what they're going to do. Trust it. Trust, like, I don't want to call it the process, but trust it. So enjoy the games, even though there's disheartening losses to cello dwellers. Like, and I think Orlando's going to surprise a lot of teams now when they get their guys healthy. When Jonathan Isaac comes back, I mean, they're going to be a
Isaac
force
and
to
Suggs
reckon
are
with.
two of their
So,
best
so look, I
defenders.
don't think there's any. It's only bit. It's just the way the schedule is. We went there, and we got beat out, and we're hurt. We got even half of our team right now, so not to worry. I think Scotty's going to be great. So it's not fair. End of story.
Thanks a lot.
Chris, it was not
Appreciate,
fair. All right.
appreciate it,
Talk to you
Chaz.
again. All right.
See ya.
Ciao.
Ciao. Okay, as promised, let's go into some of those numbers. Guys, if you do want to talk, like I'm gonna post the link right here. Feel free to come on. Happy to discuss with you whether you are, pro, the slander that's been going on, or criticism. If maybe I'm framing it incorrectly by calling it slander. If you feel that it's fair criticism, then it's not slander. It's just critique. But let's go into some of these numbers. I'm gonna pull these up for you, and we're just gonna go through them and just take a look at how Scottie's season is going. So if you can see this, this is sort of where he is defensively right now, right? So last year, a little bit higher on the deflections, but as you can see, this notion that he is a somehow negative defender is pretty insane. Hold on, I'm gonna pull this comment off so you can see the full thing. I apologize, guys. I'm new to live streams. Bear with me. Here we go. Comment. Okay. So the crafted defensive plus minus shows where he is as a defender, and this is among players who are rotation players in the NBA. So he's not being compared to the 450th best player in the league. This is mainly players who are playing regular minutes in the NBA. This is sort of a notion of, okay, like this is a second-year player. We know that it usually takes time, unless you're a generational defensive prospect who comes in like Evan Mobley or Herb Jones last year. It's going to take young players a little bit of time to get right on the defensive end. But this is where I say that, you know, when you start looking at only point of attack defense, you start honing in on that. This is all the other stuff that you miss. There are not a lot of players in the league, second year or otherwise, that spend time guarding Jason Tatum and Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid and Trae Young and do a half competent job. That is a utility knife defensively, and that is a huge advantage for the Toronto Raptors. There's a reason that a team that is so obsessed with positional versatility has decided to make him such a big part of their defense. But that is addressing the defense. What about the offense? So this is where we are on the offense. And as you can see, the brown parts are sort of where the criticism lies, right? The true shooting percentage, the shot quality, the free throw rate, which is what Nick Nurse has been very critical of him about. The three-point attempt rate was actually at 33%, but over the last 3-4 games, it has fallen to 27th percentile. So it's 28.7%. The offensive rebounding, load creation, portability, passer rating, and his crafted offensive plus minus, which is just to say how positive an impact is he making on the offensive end in terms of is his team better with him or without him. Now let's get into some of the more, and I'm sorry guys, because I'm scrolling through the screen and I don't have someone helping me with the stream, so you're going to have to bear with me, but we're going to go through this and hopefully this is really informative for some people. Now, let's look at this here. In terms of contextual data, matchup difficulty. I think one of the most underrated things about how well you're performing on defense is who are you guarding and what is your role? Okay, Scottie Barnes has one of the hardest roles in the NBA. Last year, when he was right, for the most part, I mean, last year I would say he was 70% of the season he spent healthy, and about 30% of the season he was, let's call it, hurt, right? He was pushing through some nagging stuff, and I know this. But regardless of what he was going through last year, he played heavy minutes. He led the Raptors in minutes, and he was second in the league in distance traveled. Not to mention, his most frequent matchups included some of the league's biggest superstars. That includes Luka Doncic, that includes Jason Tatum, and he was being thrown to the fire as a rookie guarding these guys. That is not easy to do. So if you perform, and last year he was an above average defender as well. This year he continues to be an above average defender. So what my point here is, if you are having one of the most complicated and difficult roles on the defensive end, and you are doing it for a team that has one of the most complicated defensive schemes, and you are performing at an above average level, well, then I think that if I could take you as an individual player right now, based on your strengths, based on your effort, and just put you on any normal team where you don't have to guard the hardest guy every night, your defensive metrics will go off the chart. So I think that this is a role right here, this role, what you're seeing right now, 93rd percentile in defensive in terms of matchup difficulty, 99th percentile in terms of defensive position versatility, all of these things. These are things that are reserved for only like the greatest defenders in the world, this type of role. Okay, moving on. Okay, so playmaking. This is where I think that Toronto media, if you want to just focus in on one part of this video, can you please focus on this? Okay, this is all I want you to see. Okay, because yes, the rest of it we're going to get into. It's not great. Some of the shot creation stuff, shooting stuff, it's not great for him right now. But this is the one thing that I would say, passing is the one thing that is not impacted very much by injury. And this is where you're seeing the greatness of Scottie Barnes. And Michael is still listening out there. This is maybe what he saw when he said Scottie Barnes could be a Magic Johnson type. Okay, now I'm not saying these are Magic Johnson numbers. These are not Magic Johnson numbers. However, these are lead guard numbers, okay, in terms of assists and box creation, scoring gravity. Like, look at the numbers. I mean, I'm not making this up. This is provable. Go to B-Ball Index if you have a paid subscription and look at it. This is incredible growth. These numbers were nowhere near this last year, guys. So this is a huge expansion. Now, was he a great passer last year? Yes. but he did not have necessarily the same number of opportunities to play make last year. He's taken more opportunities to play make this year, and we're seeing how much the playmaking has progressed. Yeah, the turnovers have gone up a little bit, but not enough to offset how much the playmaking has gone up. To take a complete overview of Scottie, if you can see this, so it says that his top talent areas for Barnes, obviously unsurprisingly, are playmaking, perimeter defense, roll gravity, and finishing. Okay. What it doesn't say is his top talent is 3-point shooting and above the break threes. Okay. So, yes, we understand what type of player he is. And in a lot of ways, this is exactly the player that a lot of people projected him to be when he came out of Florida State, which was a Draymond Green type, right? If you had to say what is Draymond Green's greatest strength as a player, as an offensive player, it'd be playmaking. As a defensive player, it would probably be perimeter defense and paint defense. So a lot of this stuff is very Draymond-esque, but I think that what we're seeing right now is um, as Chaz alluded to, I think a 35 to 40% version of Scottie, not just from a developmental perspective, just from a health perspective. And if he gets right, then suddenly every shot that's a little bit short isn't short. Let's move on here. So now we see paint touches, post up frequency, right? So for people who say that, I want to challenge the narrative of, oh, he's not going into the paint, he's not posting up. Well, his total post frequency is in the 83rd percentile. Okay, I think that's fairly average. Okay, he's not Nikola Jokic, he's not going to be. Okay, post up draw foul rate is a B. Okay, post up impact, not great. That is the first of many Fs that we're going to see for Scottie Barnes. Okay, moving on. 3-point percentage. Now, this is something that Jack Armstrong was a little bit critical about. Jack Armstrong said, hey, Scottie Barnes, why are you taking threes? Go to the paint. Well, we realize that he's going to the paint a fair amount, not enough, but sure. But this is sort of where he is as a catch and shoot 3-point percentage. Okay, now here's something that I want to pose to you Raptor fans watching out there, all 130 of you that are watching right now, 140 of you. When he was drafted, were you ever told that at any point in his life that he would be a 65th percentile catch and shoot 3-point shooter? Was that ever mentioned as even in the realm of possibilities that Scottie Barnes may one day be an average 3-point shooter? Because right now, yeah, he's shooting a league below average, but I will tell you that most of the dip in his 3-point percentage, now we can say, okay, 10 games was not a fair sample size, but after that Atlanta game, he was at 52% from three, guys. 52%. Yes, it was I think he was 7 or 8 games into the season, but it was a very promising start. After about, I want to say 19 games prior to the last 3-4 stinkers, he was at 35.3%. And now he's, at 32. So, it's gone down, but I want to say that when he was relatively healthy, it was going well for him. Let's see here. 3-point shot quality, not great. These things, 3-point shot creation. Is that an A+? He's been really good off the bounce on 3-point shots. Feel free to screenshot this stuff and dissect it for yourself later. In terms of offensive archetypes defended, now this is where I see trust. Right? Look at how much of look at the different roles that he's defending. He's not Christian Coloco. If you looked at Christian Coloco's identical, defensive matchups, he's defending one or two types of players all the time. These are some of the best players in the league. Primary ball handlers are the best players in the league, effectively. Those are your heliocentric hubs. That is his greatest, shot creators and primary ball handlers. So shot creators being Kevin Durant, primary ball handler would be Kyrie Irving, just to put that into context, right? He's defending some of the, every night, he and OG are defending the two, the two best players on the team. That is almost guaranteed, right? He spent time on Markelle Fultz and he spent time on Paolo Banchero last game. So we're seeing that. So this shows me at least that Nick Nurse trusts him to do that and is challenging him to at least take difficult matchups. Opportunity and usage. Now this challenges my perceptions and was quite surprising to me that in terms of touches per game, he has 71 touches, which is the 94th percentile, right? So to those of us saying, you're not passing the ball enough to Scottie, well, this is the number of times he's touching the ball per game. He's touching the ball a lot. So this, to me, is the primary, aha moment where I'm saying Scottie needs to be more aggressive. Nick Nurse is right. So this is where fair criticism comes in. When you're getting the ball, now, okay, the Raptors run a whole bunch of DHOs where, guys will touch the ball, and you'll see a lot of boost in touches per game for all the Raptors, which are not real touches. But I think we can all agree that there have been many times that we've seen Scottie with a favorable matchup against the big that he could easily drive on, and he's not going. Now, is that injury? Is that lack of confidence? I don't know. I can't tell you definitively because I'm not in Scottie's head. What I know is that regardless of how it gets better, it does need to get better in order for him to unlock more of the playmaking greatness that he has. Let's move on here. Defensive rebounding, something that I think is a really big part of defense that maybe he's not getting enough credit for, right? Just take a look there, right? This is a very above average rebounder. And for a guy who spends so much time guarding on the perimeter, it's really difficult to be an average or even above average defensive rebounder. If you want a really good example of this, the two things that really take away from your ability, three things that take away from your ability to rebound. Number one, being further away from the basket. So if you typically have a switching big like Maxi Kleber, guys like that, it will impact your, it'll impact your defensive rebounding numbers. Number two, if you're a major shot blocker, if you look at Miles Turner, his rebound rate has never been good. Why? Because he's almost always out of position to get a rebound because he's almost always going for a block. That makes sense, right? And number three, it's guys like Steven Adams, guys guys like that who, even if they'll get a lot of rebounds, I think a lot of their focus ends up being on boxing out and allowing other people to get rebounds as well. I've seen Scottie let Pascal get like 150 rebounds this year, it feels like. So there's a lot of times where he could get a defensive rebound, but I think this was somewhat promising for me. Moving on, this is where it all falls apart for Scottie. Off-ball movement. Okay. Now, with the advancement, I would call it the advancement of tracking data, we are literally able to track, trainers are able to track how many feet, how many steps their player took, whether they were right hand dominant, left hand dominant. Like I can track, basically if a player goes left or right, how frequently they go. And one of the things, that has become an increasing obsession among NBA analytics nerds is to understand off-ball movement. How much do players move? Now, some movement is somewhat useless. Some movement is with a lot of purpose. I think that last year Scottie's off-ball movement was a lot better. There was a lot more cuts. And to me, off-ball movement comes down to two things: trust and health. Okay. So if he has trust, that movement away from the basketball. So to contextualize it, I'm not going to assume everyone here completely understands what I mean by off-ball movement. It's basically what you do when you don't have the basketball. Are you cutting? Are you screening? Are you rolling out? Are you relocating? I think last year Scottie, did a lot better job of this. I think he was more active when he didn't have the ball. Now there's a lot of standing around in corners, and I think people have been probably fairly critical of this. Again, is it trust? Is it discontent? Or is it health? Because it really is one of those three. He didn't just forget how to play basketball, guys. So it is an important thing to sort of put that into context. Daryl, I know you're waiting backstage. I'm just going to get through 2 or 3 more slides, and we're going to get into it. Screening and rolling, okay? As a total roll man impact, 99th percentile in roll man impact. I think, this to me is one of the biggest beefs. When he doesn't have the ball, and I think we're going to see at some point that his pick and roll ball handling skills, pick and roll ball handling has not been great in terms of registering points per possession, but I think that has a lot to do with Christian Coloco not being able to finish around the basket, guys not being able to finish shots, etc. So I think some of those numbers look down. But as a roller to the basket last year, I think Scottie had a lot of success, and it's nice to see that he still has some success here. But this is not nearly as good as it was last year for him. Finally, here we have just the overall, so Raptor, LeBron. I don't put a great deal of emphasis on this, but it's nice to know that his overall Raptor like defensive Raptor is in the 80th percentile. That is an analytical so we call one metric stats, right? There's bad one metrics, like PER is a really bad one to focus on. And then there's something like box plus minus, VORP, Raptor, etc. These things measure things beyond whether a shot is going in or not, and just try to impact, like, how are you impacting your team on the floor. His defensive Raptor is plus 1.5. That is a very, very above average defender in the NBA. I just want to put that out there. It is very rare to see a young guy, a young player who's hobbling around to be this commendable. Yeah. So in terms of box plus minus, by the way, this data is before last game, and in one game, sorry, this is before the Orlando. This is right before the second Orlando game. So this is just 2 games ago. In just 2 games in Orlando, his box plus minus, which box plus minus 2.0 there is plus 0.1. It has dipped to the negatives. So that's just how bad the last 2 games were in terms of influencing the season. And just in terms of the final stat, I think that this is one part of his defense that really gets underrated, which is in interior defense. Okay, now rim deterrence is not great, but percentage of rim shots contested, I think that's fantastic. He's not a center, guys. He's been starting at guard for you pretty much all season, and this is a guard who is performing extremely well as an interior defender. So look, yeah, there's been mobility issues for Scottie all year because of health. We can agree to that. We can say that he's delivered some blow-bys based on point of attack defender. My beef with people who talk about defense as if they know what the fuck they're talking about is that there's more to defense than keeping your man in front of you. Okay, and if there wasn't, then there are twitchy guys like Davion Mitchell will be the best defender in the NBA, but he's not. Okay, because there's more to it. Fred VanVleet, for all of his screen navigation, is not a great point of attack defender, is not a good rim defender, is not a good, he's not great at contesting those corner threes. Scottie's great at those. So look, defense is multifaceted in a league where offenses and players are becoming more dynamic by the day. You need guys who can do hundreds of different things on the defensive end. To focus on the one thing that he's not doing well and say he's a bad defender, his defense has been so underwhelming. I hope to those of you who've made it 42 minutes into the stream that hopefully these numbers put into context a little bit better why I don't believe that Scottie is having nearly as bad a season as he's having. Also, I think the part for me that was humbling is to realize that, yes, he is touching the ball. I will put into context that I don't think that at least half of those touches are not really scoring touches. Maybe there'll be backcourt touches. There'll be like the dribble handoff touches. But there are plenty of opportunities where Scottie has turned down opportunities to score. And when he's right, I think that he needs to stop turning those down, because when he's right, he is a very, I think, one of the best options to score for this team. However, when he's not right and things are not going right, I do understand that he does not want to hijack the offense. So no matter how bad it makes his numbers look, I do appreciate that the Scottie Barnes that I kind of grew up watching, of the guy who will do anything to help his team win, whether it means taking 2 shots, whether it means taking 12 shots, even though he's feeling the pressure from the media to score more points. Because let's be honest, last night he came out like gangbusters on defense, right? He was guarding everybody. He was contesting everything. He was really hustling hard, right? But then he ends up 3 for 13 and 11 points, I believe. And people were like, oh my God, it's getting worse. All of the, doldrum afterwards was negative about him. Well, if he didn't play great defense, but he scored 22 points, I think a lot of those critics would shut up. And I think that that's sort of what he meant when he said to Michael Grange in the locker room, or whoever he said it to. There was a scrum in the locker room that was never really put out for everybody to see. And there's a lot of quotes from that scrum that have been sort of twisted. I think that's what he meant by, I'm doing a lot more than just scoring. I think you need to look at more in my game. Anyways, now we have Daryl from Taiwan. Hey, man, how are you?
Good to see you again so soon.
Good to see you again. Surprising?
Did you get any sleep?
Not a wink. No, I slept for like 4 or 5 hours. But yeah, how are you doing?
Good. Yeah, just something I thought you might be interested in hearing. Something that resulted from yesterday's post game. Afterwards, another Raptors fan that apparently is also a fan of your channel reached out to me. He happens to live in the same city that I live in, and we may. Long story short, we may end up be collaborating on a project that will grow the sport of basketball in Asia. It could be something significant. So I thought you might want to know you facilitated that. So thank you. That was you never know what's going to happen. You know?
That's so cool. That's so cool
Yeah.
for the sport of basketball. But also, may I just put my Fred VanVleet hat on for a second and just say that I officially have 2 fans in Taiwan.
Yeah, man, that's right. You do. At least two that you know of.
At least 2. If you find a third, I believe I can really put that on my
resume.
You
better start learning how to speak Mandarin now. Your fan base is growing pretty fast here.
Okay, so tell me, what have you thought of A, do you have any reaction to the numbers that I just posted?
Yeah.
And B, do you have any thoughts about whether or not the criticism has been fair? Because I'm sure you've seen some of it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, all of it, right? Yeah. First of all, just like one of the last things you said about how you think that Scottie doesn't want to hijack the offense. And I agree with you so much so that you actually hijacked my point, because that's what I thought of saying before you said it. But yeah, I mean, the numbers are there, but the numbers, as we all know, statistics just show or reflect what's actually happening on the court. So if you notice things, or if your vision or your court vision or whatever, your court sense is good enough, you can actually see them happening in real time. You don't even need to look up the numbers. You can actually see these things happening. And one thing that I've noticed that Scottie's been doing is when he fights for, offensive rebounds or scrambles for a ball or gets a deflection or whatnot. And last year he would have posted up, he would have done something aggressive, he would have thrown down a monster dunk. He's passing. And the atrocious shooting of his teammates is not helping him at all. I mean, it's not like he's thrown a couple of bad passes, but most of his passes are really, really good. And he's creating open looks. He's creating space. He's creating time for his teammates. They're getting open shots and they're just clanking it. And the sample size is growing kind of ridiculously large recently.
But yeah, some people are complaining about the background noise.
I'm sorry about that. Yeah, it's lunch break, so we can hang up. I've said my
yeah.
part, so.
All right. Thanks, Daryl. We'll have you on again, I'm sure, at some point.
Yep.
All right. Have a good one. See you, man.
Yeah, good talking.
All right, guys. If anyone else wants to come on, this is your last chance. I'm going to post the link one more time, and then we're going to call it a night. But today I saw a post on Real GM, and it was like, where do you think Scottie's going to be? What's your faith level in him in terms of what type of player he's going to be? And it was ranked from A, which is like the Kawhi, Steph Curry, Durant level, and then it was all the way down to like D or F, which was the Jeremy Grant elite role player level. And I was shocked to say that most people voted for the FD grade. That very few people were optimistic enough to vote for A, B, or C. People were all the way down. So I understand that the sentiment is bad. I also understood that when he was drafted, the sentiment was really bad. It can change very quickly, guys. I just want to say that for those people who reported on this over the last few days, just be straight about why you're doing this. Just come out and say, look, I didn't like the guy to begin with, and now he's showing me a little bit of what I didn't like to begin with, so now I'm doubling down. Just be honest about it, because I'm kind of tired of watching people say the guy is not good, taking it back, saying, oh shit, I was wrong, and then the minute he has a 2-week slump or 2 months, he's going through injuries and stuff, you're right back. It's like it's going in circles, guys. Just pick a side and be with it and just be straight about it. Okay, we have this is going to be the last one. We're gonna have Rye Guy on. Hey, Rye Guy, how are you doing?
Good. How are you doing today?
I'm great.
So I guess for me, like I just don't see what people are having a problem with Scottie with, because I see lots of really good things for me, and I've written it in the chats a million times on a million different forums, is that I just see something about Fred's presence diminishes Scottie's personality on the court. You can see it when Fred's in control of the game. I find that Scottie, he he doesn't have his usual energetic self. And, you know, as opposed to, in contrast, when you see him play with OG and Delano Banton and even some of the second string guys that are a little bit more willing to share and stuff like that, it just eyes light up. He gets super stoked because he'll, you know, hit like a Wancho or a Delano streaking to the basket and stuff like that. And you can see he kind of gets off on those things.
Yeah, there's a lot of guys that, you know, Scottie is so uniquely transparent as a human being, right? Like, I think if you don't have to be a body language expert to know when a question sort of bothers him, when something makes him really happy, he's uniquely transparent that way. I think one of the things I'll tell you is he really is a huge fan of Juancho. He likes playing with Juancho. They get along off court. There's been a lot of good vibes between those guys. And you know, Goran last year, there was another guy that he really liked, Yuta Watanabe. It's interesting how every single person that I like is also a person that Scottie happens to like. I don't know how that keeps happening, but it just keeps happening over and over. And I think it's because the guys that I like are really, they're over themselves a little bit, right?
Yeah, I was sad when they traded. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I was sad when they traded Watanabe because he was
Well,
another
they just
guy who
didn't
I
sign
thought,
him. They didn't sign him.
or yeah, that's right. But
But
yeah,
interestingly enough, because you got rid of Watanabe, you got the other guy that Scottie really likes, which is Juancho. But it's not easy to identify for me the type of person or the type of player that Scottie wants to play with. It's guys who move the ball. It's guys who are genuine, honest, and not selfish. I think that's, you know, if you're a high IQ basketball player, who doesn't want to play with guys like that, right? Who wouldn't want to? Who wants to
yeah.
play with a guy who takes a ton of really terrible shots and you know, dominates possessions? But I will say that, look, I don't want to become someone who's trying to psychoanalyze Scottie or misinterpreting, you know, subtle actions. But I will tell you that as someone who, you know, as you know, if you're a fan of this channel, all of you, I'm assuming, who are watching right now have watched some of the breakdown videos. In order to create those videos, I watched the entire game at half speed. That's how I do it. So you watch it for 2 hours, I watch it for 2 hours with you. Then I watch the whole thing for 4 hours, slowed down. And then I start snipping out pieces that stick out to me. A very interesting thing happens when you watch the entire game at half speed. Certain things you miss start to pop out like a sore. And one of the things that has popped out for me is the number of times he has flung his arms up in protest over a decision that Fred VanVleet is making with the basketball. Happens all the time. Happened last game as well.
Yeah.
He was cutting, he was filling the lane, and there was a very obvious pass that Fred could make to him, and he didn't make it. He decided to dribble it out. Scottie pulls himself out 4 feet. He has his hands up, and he says something along the lines of, "What the fuck?" Right?
Yeah,
Now,
I've seen that from OG as well.
OG all the time now. He never
Yeah.
used to do it. This year, it's amazing how often it happens. And you'll often see, you know, if you've, you know, I talk to people who are inside the Raptors locker room a little bit, not the players specifically, but, you know, people who cover the team or whatever. They'll say that there are huddles now. There's cliques forming. There's guys who are, you know, on one side of it talking to themselves. There's another, you know, set of guys who are talking to themselves. And it's not good. It's like a disharmonious locker room. And, you know, I found it interesting that Michael Grange echoed those sentiments. I was like, wow, he actually said it. That's interesting. So he said the same thing. He's like, you know, there are, you know, pockets of guys talking. And I think when you look at who sits next to who on the bench, without reading too much into it, you almost always see OG and Scottie sitting next to each other, talking to each other about things. So when something really bothers me, usually what I'll do is I'll zoom in, especially on their reaction, especially when the action is happening on their side of the bench, like something stupid that happens on offense, and you'll see them sort of turn to each other a little bit. I know this is getting like way too psychoanalytical and probably kooky for some people, and some people are just going to tune me out and say, okay, Rob, you're going too far. You're zooming into guys' reactions on the bench to how a team is playing. But that is the human element of basketball. When you don't like how a certain team is playing now, not to completely override your point here, but I do want to say that there was a quote from myself. And it's weird. I'm quoting myself, but someone asked me the other month what would have happened if Scottie Barnes had gone to the Pistons. Right? What if the Pistons had drafted Scottie first? Would he be as good as Cade? And my response to that is ringing very true. And what I said was, if Scottie Barnes had to sit through a 20-win season, he would kill somebody and go to jail. Because that is how much Scottie Barnes hates losing. So That's where I think this is going. Not that Scottie Barnes is going to kill somebody and go to jail, but that there are just certain players that do not tolerate losing. They don't
I do have a
lose
kind of a
well.
question about what you're saying there too.
Sure.
Like, I'm not sure how familiar you are with the Canadian system, but my last year of high school, I actually played in Kwasa, which is kind of our high school championships, on
Hmm.
2 sprained ankles, and it was horrible. My jump was, probably a half of what it was. Horizontal, lateral movement was completely impaired. And to see a guy like Scottie, who's obviously got some issues going on, doing this in the NBA, like, at what point do you need to stop a player like that from harming themselves and just gonna go, hey, let's give you a good week off or something like that and try to get that,
They've
those
tried.
ligaments or whatever to repair it. Yeah.
They've tried. They tried right before training camp. He sprained his ankle. They tried to give him a couple of weeks off heading into training camp. So there was a lot that he didn't do in terms of contact stuff. Then they sort of rushed him back into preseason, which is something that I just sort of disagree with. I mean, look at what the Pistons are doing with Cade, right? They've shut him down for the season already. Jalen Suggs has missed plenty of time. If you're asking me, there's only 3 like lottery picks who are doing really well in terms of the 2021 draft, and that's like Scottie, Evan Mobley, and I guess to some extent Jalen Green, because he's putting up big numbers. So yeah, I would have shut him down. I would have shut him
Yeah.
down until the second week of the season. I think part of the reason would not just be injury, but just because of load. As I said, young bodies. I mean, Lonzo Ball is a great example of someone who was loaded to hell as a young kid, right? I'm not a physiotherapist, but I have become obsessed with the topic of injuries, recurrence of injuries, etc. So I've dug into this at a very high level here. I've talked to a lot of people about it. And one sport athletes who do too much, like they do too much, there's too much of a load put on their lower body while they're growing, that can lead to chronic injuries down the line. I think we saw it with Tracy McGrady, too many minutes in Orlando, right?
Do you think we saw it
He
with Brandon Roy as well? Because I know that he had like
maybe,
that knee impingement or something like that, and I'm not sure if
yeah. I
that
think with
started
him
with
it was
overplay.
just, yeah, it was just cartilage, right? He was just missing the cartilage, and he was getting bone on bone, which was extremely painful for him. Um, yeah, so I just think that when you hoop that much too soon, I think that personally, I don't like this. I was very critical of Tom Thibodeau in during the Chicago Bulls run when
Yeah.
Derrick Rose. Look at those guys: Derrick
And New
Rose,
York as well.
Luol Deng, Joakim Noah. Right? Those were the 3 main guys that were being run out there playing aggressive defense, crazy offense. Which one of those guys do you believe was effective at 31? Like
Yeah.
it's debatable to say, okay, yes, Derrick Rose is having a blossom, but he's not anywhere near the player he was in Chicago. And we can say that yes, that's a slew of injuries, but then we can also say, well, why so many injuries? And it's his gait, it's this, it's that. But Luol Deng and Joakim Noah are not run jump superstar athletes. I remember watching Luol Deng in New Jersey when he was playing in high school, and like to watch how many miles this guy's body took early on. I think there needs to be an intervention. I think for years we've heard about how great the Raptors head athletic trainers are, and how great their training staff is, and how great their medical support team is. And I get that. I'm not debating that. I'm not a doctor. I don't even want to pretend to be one. But I think it's fair criticism to say, is there an impact of playing guys like Fred VanVleet, Scottie Barnes, Pascal Siakam? Are you taking years off the end of their career by running them into the ground right now, especially in a defensive system that requires them to move as much as this does?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna say, like, I think it's kind of counterintuitive to what they're trying to do, because they're trying to basically run a full court press, the entire game, like almost like hockey platoons, except for they're not doing it with the platoons. They're just kind of doing it, one, like you said, I'm like my frustration with the way that Nick's coaching right now is that you've got these guys playing long minutes, and you see them just doing what all NBA stars who play long minutes do, and they kind of dog it occasionally because they need to save a little bit or recoup after a hard offensive or defensive play, and it's just counteractive as opposed to just kind of running them out more like a 25 to 26 or maybe 30 max range, and then allowing them to play harder defense for more of the game, and then bringing in role players with the right, sets to offset that when they need breaks and
Look,
stuff.
I completely agree with you, and I think that a lot of the shooting slump that we're seeing, it's it's impossible if you've played basketball, which you clearly have, to ignore the relationship between tired legs and shots not going in. There's a reason why people are less effective shooting free throws at the end of the game versus the beginning of the game. There's a reason why. Okay, so three-pointers start to go short. People start to respond to those short three-pointers by going, right and left and trying to aim it to compensate for the lack of energy they have left in their legs. And maybe this I don't want to call it completely heliocentric, but hybrid heliocentric offense around Pascal is allowing guys to sort of relax their legs a little bit on offense by sort of standing and watching him a little bit, but it's certainly not helping the guy who's having to initiate against two defenders and then having to go back and be a defender, and then know that if you dog it on defense, Kansari Basketball is going to make a highlight clip of your terrible defense. That's not right. So, like, at the end of the day, yes, I agree with you. Any one of these things, shutting Scottie down and helping him out, I think would be a good idea. I think playing guys fewer minutes, especially having like a hard limit of about 36 to 37 minutes, would be a really good idea. I think that culture needs to be adopted. I think someone needs to talk to Nick Nurse about it, because running guys into the ground, I know that those guys probably want to do it right now because it helps their counting stats. And yes, technically, Pascal Siakam on tired legs is still a better player than Chris Boucher on fresh legs. I will agree with that. Yes, he is. But when you get too narrowly focused on that, you start forgetting that there is something beyond this game. There's the next game. There's the playoffs. And I have never seen a team I've never seen a coach who is serious about contending run their team into the ground this way. You should see how Greg Popovich coached, Tim Duncan playing 30, 31 minutes a night. Like, I don't care how many books Nick Nurse has read or how many championships he wins. Like, he's not a better coach than Greg Popovich. Take a note from Greg's career, because Manu Ginobili, Tim Duncan were very effective players well into their 30s because of him sort of saving them from themselves. Because if you had left it to Tim Duncan, who is a hyper competitive guy, and said, do you want to play 40 minutes tonight? Or do you want to play 30 minutes tonight? Obviously, Tim Duncan's going to say, I'll play 40 minutes for you, but it's I think that if people are curious about it, go look at the Derrick Rose Bulls, 2011, 2012, look at the guys on that roster and go study their stats on Basketball Reference and see the dip and where it came. And then ask yourself, if you were watching Luol Deng at 23, 24, did you expect him to dip out so soon? And do you think that there's a relationship between, how quickly some of those guys tailed off in their early 30s and the overload of minutes that they played early? Look at Tracy McGrady in Orlando, right? Butch Carter was notorious for sort of trying to save Tracy from himself by limiting his minutes. And Tracy was like, no, I need to run. And Butch Carter's like, no, you need to walk. You're not a fully developed prospect. Your body hasn't fully developed. And I think the minute he got to Orlando, kind of a bad organization, congratulations, Doc Rivers, plays him 40 minutes a night because, he's scoring fantastically. And that's how, they feel like they're giving themselves the best chance to win. And unfortunately, look at Tracy McGrady post 30, 31, 32. His career was done. Versus look at Vince Carter, someone who took time to heal those injuries, someone who played he never played like 40 minutes a night, Vince. There is a benefit to longevity, and if you're a coach, you care about these players, you love these players, you've come up with these players, then you have an obligation to protect them from themselves sometimes as well. I'm not going up to Scottie and saying, "Can you go right now?" No, I'm watching him, and I'm saying it's very clear you're not right now. So that's I agree with you. I'm going to bring on. Do you have any final?
I'll take off. I know that you're trying to get out of here early, so thanks again, and best of luck with the rest of this podcast. I'll keep watching.
Thank you very much, Michael. Sorry about that. Jean, am I saying that correct?
Yes.
Jean, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Yourself?
I'm good. What do you think?
Good, man. It's just you really bring me back on Raptors video because I was kind of tired watching all the same narrative everywhere. So it's good to hear something different from everybody else, pretty much. I know some market that sometimes it's hard. I can imagine in Canada with the only NBA team. So every guys have to try to be nice to the Raptors, right? Because everybody want to work for them probably, right? If they want to have a career and being an NBA writer or work for the media or whatever.
Mhm.
I just enjoying listening to you guys. But one thing I was thinking about the situation the Raptors is right now. I start following the Raptors, really watching them on the year they won the title. Not after that year, even before, because I just like the guys they were had, like Mark Gasol, Serge, Danny Green,
Okay.
those staples in the NBA, right? And
Mhm.
then that year was magical, and people today are always arguing with people that team is underrated. When the year goes on and on, people will appreciate that team more and more, because of the evolution of the game and the defensive minded team that they were. So what do you think of, because this team, you see somebody like Nick Nurse, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, they're probably the three most powerful people in the locker room type. But all of those guys, this is guys that kind of sometime I don't for me, I'm not from a sport background, but I know in my profession, some people's feel out of place sometimes. You know what I'm saying? Like Nick Nurse wasn't a former player at this level, right? Nobody was expecting Pascal Siakam to be that guy, and Fred VanVleet wasn't drafted and everything, and they are in that position. Don't you think that can create that type of atmosphere where the guys feel insecure and things like that? Where today I was watching
So
some
let me just try
interaction
to
between.
understand this. Sorry, Sean. Let me interrupt you for a second. Let me
Yeah,
try to understand this. Who is insecure in this situation? Do you think Fred and Pascal are insecure, or other
I think
guys are
I think
insecure?
all three, Nick Nurse and Pascal and Fred.
You know
I
what?
be I
You have hit the nail on the head, my friend. That is interesting. Okay, so I was listening to the Ryan Russillo podcast today, and he was talking about the Houston Rockets and how they have all of these brilliantly talented players: Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith, Jalen Green, and they are playing the worst brand of basketball in the history of the world. Like, like if you think the Raptors' offense is bad, just look at a Rockets game. It's worse somehow, right? And it's just my turn, your turn, my turn, your turn. And it's, if you hit a shot and get me an assist, I'm going to pass to you. If you miss two shots, I'm not passing you to the rest of the game. And it's incredibly selfish brand of basketball. And so Ryan's correct, I believe, stance was you can't have too many guys who don't know who they are on the same team. I think that's a really good point, because this bet on yourself mentality, the desire to be great, these are all very fantastic things. However, there needs to be some element of self-acceptance and of role. Because if Thaddeus Young, like, you look at the guys on this team who are somewhat over themselves, and I'll sort of put it as guys who, they aren't playing, in my opinion, selfishly. Christian Koloko, somehow remarkably as a rookie, he feels either over himself or either too timid to take opportunities that are not his right now. Kem Birch feels very over himself. He's not really trying to prove anything. He stays within himself. He doesn't jack in contested shots. If I had to rank, if I had to take every shot that Kem Birch has taken in his entire Raptor career thus far, I can't find 4 bad shots. So he just takes good shots, period. Thad Young, similar way. Otto Porter, similar way. What do these guys have in common? They are older. They are a little bit older. That does come with a little bit of age. They've been around a bit. They've probably came into the league with a certain expectation of who they would be in the league. The league humbled them a little bit. They understood that, hey, it's not really that terrible to make $5 million, $10 million, $12 million, $21 million to be the 7th or 8th best guy on a team. This is a fantastic life. I love this. Let me lean into this. This is how I'm going to extend my career. There are certain guys who never buy into this. How long could Allen Iverson have extended his career if he was willing to come off the bench? How long could Carmelo Anthony have, extended his career if he had really developed some sort of off-ball skills? I mean, I think these guys could have been productive into their 30s, but they didn't do that because ego, right? So I think with this team, there's a false idea that because the guys are older, they're necessarily more secure. I think you've hit the nail on the head why they're not so secure. Because, I mentioned it earlier in the stream. Reports leaked this summer that, Scottie Barnes was the only untouchable for the Raptors. Some people were very offended by that. They were very pissed off by that. I think a lot of people, on the Raptors side sort of understood it, but that puts, there's a two-sided argument that puts a lot of pressure on Scottie to be, if that report is out there, to the point of how much this actually bothered Scottie in the offseason. I'll just give you an anecdote on this. He does live Twitch streams, right? If you know about this, yeah, he plays video games.
I do.
And, like any 21-year-olds, right? Just a normal thing to do for 21-year-olds today is to play on Twitch. He banned the word KD, Brooklyn Nets, and Durant, Kevin Durant. All terms were banned. If you tried to write them in his chat, your comment wouldn't show up. That's how much the noise was getting to him. He's so accessible, unfortunately. This is the problem with being an athlete in the 21st century with social media. You're so accessible, right? And you can do what Fred has done, which is just, cut out comments and stuff so you can't hear it. But Scottie hasn't done that yet. Scottie sees a lot of stuff. He reads a lot of stuff. He's always glued to his phone. So I think that might be something that actually took him as well. Like, oh, wow, that's a lot of, that's pressure on me. I'm the guy that they turned down Kevin freaking Durant for. But then I also think that puts a lot of pressure on him from a fan expectation. Oh, this guy's that good. So now you're almost like Kevin Durant scoring 30 plus points per game. This guy's scoring 14 barely, and he's so inefficient. This is what we turned down Kevin Durant for. Like, this is what we're banking on to be better than what Kevin, and it creates such a shitstorm of pressure for a guy, because at no point does any rational person believe that Scottie Barnes is going to be better than Kevin Durant this year, next year, or the year after that. Kevin Durant is a Hall of Famer, in my opinion, a top 10 player of all time. It's crazy to put that type of pressure on him. But the 1-for-1 swap of Scottie is off the table makes it seem like, well, what if Scottie wasn't off the table? What if the Scottie package was off the table, because the Scottie package included OG and Gary? And the Raptors were like, we don't want to give up all three. And so the report comes out, Scottie's off the table for Kevin Durant, and suddenly all the pressure is on him. The flip side of this is now that's also pressure from your teammates. Hey, superstar, absolutely. Right? Like, imagine you're in the locker room. Imagine you're Scottie Barnes. Let's play for a second. You're Scottie Barnes. You have a credit report, like a fully backed up report that you were the one player on your team that was put off the table for Kevin Durant. That means every other player was not off the table, which means all those guys are on the table, which means that at any given point, if this season does not go right, you're the guy that could have turned into Kevin Durant. Things are not going well right now. Well, we could have had Kevin Durant. Look at Fred VanVleet on Serge Ibaka's How Hungry Are You? What's one question that he was asked? Would you trade Scottie Barnes for Kevin Durant? Almost like interesting, right? And Fred politically, of course, he said, no, I wouldn't. If anyone believes that, you're crazy. But he said it, he said it's like, no, I wouldn't. But the fact that is a question now, given when that report originally came out, which was, I believe, June or July, right?
The summer, yeah.
This is 4 months later and we're still talking about it. How can you expect as a fan base that this is not something that has actually, impacted him and his relationship with certain guys on this team? And obviously, if you're Delano Banton and Kem Birch, this isn't going to bother you at all. You're obviously, you're obviously open to being traded.
Above your pay grade.
Exactly. But if you're OG Anunoby, Gary Trent Jr., Pascal Siakam, and Fred VanVleet, you might take a bit of you might take this as a bit of a shot, like, why is he being put up above us? And, you can say all the right things, but if you read the body language as you clearly have, it's not great. And I love the fact that he and OG are really getting along, and things seem to be like synergistically very good with those guys. But it's the other guys where, at least on court metrics don't look great. Him and Pascal seem to have a lot of chemistry when Fred is out, but when all three are on the court together, it's not great. Right. So there's definitely something going on there. And, when you have Michael Grange saying there's issues in the locker room, there usually are.
I don't know if you watched that interaction with Tad and Nick Nurse on the bench. He was trying to show him something on the court during a game. I
When
don't
was
remember
this?
which game. There was an image of Tad Young talking to
Mhm.
Nick Nurse on the bench, trying to show
Okay.
him something. I don't know if you've seen that interaction.
No.
So like, yeah, and then talking about OG, you remember that summer too, there was OG not happy with his role in the team and stuff like that.
Hmm.
For me, just an opinion. For me, I don't like the offense, the way to run, like no ball movement or anything. But I don't like that they trying to make OG because he was complaining. And this year you see them throw him the ball, trying to be somebody he's not. For me, OG complaining, I don't think OG will never be like a guy that's gonna shake defender, and OG can't even dunk a smaller guy, keep blocking him all the time. You know what I'm saying? He's a great player, but he's not a guy that gonna be taking lots of shots on a team and
Yeah.
any team for
So
me.
I don't agree with that. I think, while I agree that yes, it would be unfair to say that OG has on ball skills and dribbling creation that Scottie and Pascal and even Fred have right now, or even Gary. Like, he's obviously the furthest behind on that front between those four guys. I think that he's also one of the quickest learners among those guys. He's never been put in a role where anyone ever said to him in high school, college, whatever, here, grab the ball, dribble 4 times and take a shot. He's going to be bad at it. But one of the things that I've always complained about with OG, and even though he's been one of my favorite players for a very long time, is that a willingness to make mistakes is a very good thing in a young player. And I often saw a
Okay.
player who was afraid to take a pass or afraid to make a dribble because he knew that there was a chance that it wouldn't work out. He was a very error-free player. He's a deep perfectionist. But through all the work, the off-season development, I have seen considerable improvement on the front of ball handling. I think it's a lot better this year. The passing is next level this year in terms of where it was 3 years ago to where it is now. And again, 25 years old, I'm not saying that age is everything, but you do give a prospect who's 25 years old who has shown you that he's willing to work hard. I will tell you that he's going through some stuff. He has an injury as well. It's not an injury, but it's hurt in his shooting hand. I believe Nick Nurse addressed that today with the media. He went through this last year as well. It really did hurt his performance. Unfortunately, this is just stuff that happens when you're playing basketball, right? Like
What's the best situation you see for him as a player, OG?
When
The
you say
best
best situation,
ideal
you mean best outcome?
ideal situation for him.
Ideal situation is probably a third option on a very good team playing next to.
Absolutely.
But
Yes.
just because you're a third option doesn't mean you shouldn't know how to dribble, pass, and shoot.
No, for me, I can see him in a very good team be the best 2-and-D guy in the league. The best.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is sort of the funny thing. I don't think he's a leading candidate for DPOY at all. And
I'm not saying that, but he can be the best
Yeah.
2-and-D, the best 2-and-D in the league.
Well, he's currently shooting in the low 30s from three, and I'm telling you, he's not one of the best. He's not one of the 3 best defenders in the league right now. No matter how much the Toronto media wants to push Pascal for MVP and OG for DPOY right now, it's not reality. It's mythology. It's like, how do I explain this? Like, without getting tripped up over myself here. The media needs a story, because the only reason that you're going to tune in to anything that they have to say is a story. It's the extension of the story, and then the fallout of the story, and then a revision of the story or an apology of the story. This is how they get you to even care about what the hell they have to say. Okay, so when Grange releases, Masai has, whatever issue with Barnes, that's a story. Well, then,
Yeah.
Will Lou can piggyback on that story and say, well, now we're going to expand on it. That's a story. Now Barnes is going to have to respond to it and say, well, this is what the conversation was about, or he's going to not talk about it, and then he's going to allow these guys to write 5 more pieces about what it might have been about, and that's another story. So this area of spin that we are in is pretty, it's pretty toxic. I'll just put it out there. I think it's really toxic. So
Yeah.
I think we need to give him time. To the point of this video, and to conclude right now, we're gonna wrap it up for tonight, guys. Thanks a lot for being on. John, do you have any final thoughts?
No, just one last thing I was gonna say. The same way I'll tell you that like the because Nurse wasn't an NBA player and Siakam wasn't expected to be a first option in the team. I think the organization also have some issue in terms of some player they don't target is because they scared that player gonna come to their locker room and create destroy the atmosphere of something, right? But when you have somebody that confident like LeBron. Oh, J.R. Smith is a problem. Bring him in. I got him. Like whoever is a problem, bring him in. I got him. So I think that's an issue that even the organization have. I've seen some players they could have target, but because of those they scared of those players, they don't think those players will fit them.
Yeah.
And this is something of confidence, and they
Yeah.
don't target them. That's an issue I've seen from this organization.
No, absolutely. Look, there are, thanks a lot, Sean. Thank you so much. Look, I have seen this throughout my whole life where, you know, you have guys who develop a bit of a reputation either for having attitude issues, being uncoachable, being locker room cancers, being selfish, right? These tags stay with you, right? And unfortunately, it really does tank your perceived value, and it really does limit the number of teams that are willing to bring you in, because ultimately, if I bring Carmelo Anthony into my locker room, as I've mentioned in previous streams, you know, it's going to be a very big risk. And unless you are one of the top 30, 20 players in the league, sometimes teams are just not willing to take that risk. So I completely understand that. You know, the organization does have this idea of, you know, Pascal and Fred are leaders, but I want to say that saying something 5,000 times doesn't make it so, right? I have seen some extremely poor leadership qualities exhibited by both of them throughout the years, and talking a big game and, you know, dealing with the media and offering a nice quote is not leadership. Leadership is sometimes putting a hand around somebody who's struggling, helping somebody through things. It's letting somebody eat first, so because you know that you'll you'll find a way to eat second. I have a natural soft spot for selfless people and good people, and when people continuously rub me the wrong way, I usually take that red flag pretty seriously. So I think the Raptors lack leadership to some extent, be it Nurse, Fred, whoever. You know, whoever is leading this isn't leading it somewhere great right now. And if the leaders in the locker room you know, if the leaders in the locker room want to right the ship, I think that they're going to have to open themselves up to rethink their own position within the team and or how they're leading. There's a quote that I'll leave you with for tonight, which is, if this is I think it's a good parting note. It's, if you want to be broke, no wait, continuously believing that you're always right is a surefire way of always being broke. I'm paraphrasing, but I hope you get the natural sentiment that if you're not willing to re-examine your process when things are not going well, and I don't mean re-examining it when it doesn't go well for one day, but when it doesn't go well continuously, if you're not willing to re-examine and adapt and adjust what you're doing, if you just go in and say, I'm a great leader no matter what this, you know, what the feedback on my leadership is telling me, if you think that, you know, playing guys 40 minutes a night is continuously going to help you, even though that there's provable science to suggest that it does hurt athletes down the line playing that type of way. I think that that's a really important thing to adjust on, to pivot on, to learn from. So anyway, thank you all so much for the stream. It did go a little bit longer, but you know, apparently I like to talk. So I hope this was interesting, and see you guys after the Sacramento game. Hopefully we'll be able to do a live stream then. And thank you. And Larry, thank you so much for the super thanks, man. That's so generous. And thank you so much. Peace, guys. Have a good one. Make sure to hit subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. Talk to you later. Bye.